In my previous video, I discussed Andrew Tate's launch of his ambition to become the next Prime Minister of the UK. But now he's released his manifesto for his bruv party. Would you still vote for him as your next Prime Minister of Britain? Hey up everyone, welcome to Political Nerds. I'm Steph the Alter Nerd, your nerdy political guide from Washington DC to Westminster and beyond. In today's video, I'm going to discuss Andrew Tate's bid to be the next Prime Minister of the UK with his newly released manifesto from his bruv party. Would you still vote for him after reading it? Now, as a disclaimer, I'm not inciting hatred to anyone, a particular group, religion, etc. So let's jump into it with this, Andrew Tate's manifesto for his bruv political party. So first up, he says, look, this is a time-limited mission of accountability. He says it's not about empty promises or lifelong career in politics. For him, it's about results. He says everything that he's promising, everything that he's pledging, there is a time limit to all of it. He says if he doesn't deliver, he'll step down. No excuses, no hiding, no second chances. Pretty cutthroat right at the beginning. Right at the beginning, he's showing his cutthroat. And so, you know, as I read through this manifesto, I'm expecting that a lot of his pledges, a lot of his policies are also going to follow that same suit, that it's going to be pretty cutthroat, which I don't know about that. I don't like it being that cutthroat. I do have to be honest with you on that. It does scare me a little bit. He's not going to be clinging to power whilst achieving nothing. He's going to hold himself accountable to the same standard that he demands from others. He says, look, if I fail, he's going to face the consequences because it's all about service and not preservation. He says, look, it's a mission, it's not a reign, and it ends the moment he stops delivering for the UK. He says that Britain can be saved quickly with immediate and decisive action, unapologetic, when I get my teeth back in, relentless for Britain. And so he's then trying to here describe overall the state of the UK. And he's trying to put it back onto the reader. He says, look, around you, look at what we've all become. A nation that once ruled the waves, that stood as a beacon of strength and freedom, now cowers under its own shadow. Our streets are dangerous, our borders are wide open, and our culture, it's being eroded. Now, let's be real on this, okay? Are our streets dangerous? Yes. Are they as dangerous as some people are making it out to be? No. It depends on where you live in the UK, I have to admit. Now, where I live, in Yorkshire, I'm pretty lucky, I have to admit, as to where I live. I can, and I have done, I've literally been out on the streets, 11 o'clock, midnight, and I've been on my own, and I've been totally safe. Totally safe. But this is the thing. It depends where you live in the UK. There is that. This isn't the Britain our ancestors fought for. This isn't the Britain they died for. And this cannot be the Britain we leave to our children. I agree with that because the state of the UK is in decline. And it is getting more dangerous out there, admittedly. Yes. And so we need to reverse that. He ultimately says, look, we must end the generation failure. And so here we now go on to policies. First thing that he comes up with is harsh migration control. And to me, with this being the first policy in his bruv manifesto, this indicates to me that this is the most important thing on his agenda to tackle. Not the NHS, not the underfunding of the police, not the underfunding of our social care. or care for our children or anything like that, the first thing that's high on his agenda, the number one priority, is harsh migration control. Because that's the first thing that he says in his manifesto. Now, do you agree that that should be his primary number one, top of the list priority? Let me know in the comments down below, guys. Now, he says that in 2024, 45,000 illegal migrants arrived into the UK, each one costing the British taxpayer £15,000 annually. Or, as the headlines are saying, nearly £1 billion a year in total. And we only know that because last year the Labour government took away the heating fuel allowance from the majority of pensioners based on the reports that are out there. And all that cost nearly £1 billion. So why not take the £1 billion that we're paying for the illegal immigrants and transfer that across to our pensioners that have paid into the system their entire lives, that are now cold and suffering during this winter as a result of the incompetence of the Labour government? Just asking for a friend, guys. He says, look, that's our hard-earned money funding people who have no respect for our borders, our laws, or our way of life. Now, one thing I do agree with on this is that, yeah, these illegal immigrants do not have respect for our borders. Why? Because they're entering the UK illegally. Therefore, in of itself, there is no respect for our borders. There is a way to enter our country legally, but they choose not to do that. He says the solution is clear. Not one more boat lands on British soil. Boats will be leaving the UK filled with illegal migrants, and not a single one will be arriving on our shores. This is a campaign guarantee. And the way he says he's going to do it is saying, look, he's going to use the Royal Navy to patrol the waters. Our borders are sacred. Our sovereignty is not negotiable. He's saying what a lot of people are thinking in this country, which is stop the boats, turn them around, send them back to France. They should not be entering the UK illegally. Everyone wants the boats to be stopped. Everyone. He says, British men died for British soil. It's not yours. You've no right to it. It's a line on a map. It's an island defended with the lives of the brave. If you get on a boat, we won't let you in. We have no obligation to save you from that boat, no matter how rough the sea. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but doesn't maritime law indicate that we do have an obligation to save people in a boat if they are in distress? I may be completely wrong on that. Let me be real on that. But I'm sure that's a thing. I'm sure Andrew Tate is wrong on saying that, in all honesty. But he's like, look, don't risk it. We're not going to be here for you. That's it. Look, at the end of the day, right, we do have to also look at these people as human beings, first and foremost. And if our Royal Navy sees them and they are struggling and their boat is damaged and they're sinking and their lives are in danger, then I would have no problem with the Royal Navy saving them. I'd have no problem in that whatsoever. The only problem is then the Royal Navy taking them back to the UK. No. They should be taken back to France at that point. Yeah. Then he goes on to the second thing on his list, which is the knife crime epidemic. Zero tolerance, maximum deterrence. So last year there were 50,000 knife crime offences in England and Wales. Now, the one thing that kind of makes me feel a little bit uneasy with this manifesto is that he's spouting out all these statistics, but in this manifesto, he's not actually providing the sources as to where he's getting these statistics from. Again, I'm playing devil's advocate here. I have to. So that makes me uneasy as well. In this manifesto, he's pulling at the heartstrings here. He says, look, that's 137 every single day. Mothers burying sons, fathers burying daughters, lives stolen, futures destroyed. He is being emotionally manipulative there. He says the punishment will be seen by every Briton every day. Introducing BBC Punishment, a 24/7 live broadcast of knife crime offenders serving solitary confinement. No redemption arcs, no second chances, just the cold, hard reality of a life wasted in a concrete cell. That is a horrific idea. Horrific idea. It's turning punishment into a Big Brother prison style show, reality show. That's not justice. That's a reality show getting ratings. I mean, let's put it this way. BBC Punishment. Introducing BBC Punishment. Let's say that goes onto the airwaves, right? Who's sponsoring that show? Who's putting up the funds for that show? Who's advertising on that channel? That has got all kinds of problems written all over it. It's horrific, that idea. Absolutely horrific. It's turning justice into a Big Brother style prison show. That's not justice. That's not justice at all. It's not even a deterrent. I mean, that could go the other way. People wanting to commit those crimes, so they do go on to BBC Punishment. It could go the other way, guys. Oh, that sends chills down my spine. It really does. Now, the next one is reforming the BBC, a rotten institution. It was once a cornerstone of British culture. Today, it's a stain on our nation's name. I have to admit, I agree with him on that. I really do. I think we definitely need to defund the BBC. We've got SEX, UAL, ABUSE scandals. Allegations of child crimes, let's say. Reports of PORN content. It's not just negligence, it's rot and it must be purged. I agree with that. I do. He says, look, the way he's going to sort this is it's going to be stripped down and rebuilt. Its mission will be factual reporting, not propaganda. They'll get the topics from Twitter and have community note-style online system for verification of all stories and debate with the public. They'll also have a public trust score based on its accurate reporting of events and voted on by the populace. They must reach a minimum trust level to be government funded. They must serve Britain, not undermine it. Now, yeah, I do agree that the BBC's mission should be factual reporting and not propaganda. Totally agree with that. Why should the BBC, though, only get its topics from Twitter? They should be getting their topics from a variety of social media and online platforms to get more of an overview of what's going on out there. Why just Twitter? That, to me, is controlling the narrative by saying they're only allowed to get it from Twitter and that's that. No. I don't like that. I do agree, though, that there should be some kind of watchdog, like public-owned watchdog in place to ensure that the BBC is not undermining the British public with its reporting. I do agree with that. How there should be a watchdog and how it should work and this, that and the other, I'll be honest, I don't know. Maybe he has the answer here, maybe someone else does. Protecting our children and restoring traditional values. And so, look, it's also happening in our schools. Children young as 6 being exposed to graphic LGBTQ plus materials. It's not education, it's indoctrination. All of this propaganda, he says, will be banned from schools. Classrooms will no longer be battlegrounds for ideological warfare. Instead, we'll promote traditional family values, respect, responsibility, and the importance of strong family bonds. This is not about hate, it's about protecting childhood. Okay, I disagree with him with this, and let me explain why. I do agree that traditional family values should be promoted, but I also agree that children should learn about the LGBTQ plus community, but what they learn should be age appropriate. Age appropriate. At the end of the day, the LGBTQ plus, whether you like it or not, is in society. They're in our community. They're here to stay. And so there should be an element of education with our children where they do learn about this community. And that then fosters further tolerance of this community. But children being shown graphic materials? I agree with Andrew Tate on that. They should not be shown graphic LGBTQ plus materials. No. They really, really shouldn't. They shouldn't. That I agree with. And I've said it myself, right, on the internet. And it's been out there and I've been completely open about this. I am a survivor of child sexual abuse myself. Now, not the grooming gang scandal. Not that. Okay? Let me be very clear. And I've always said myself, right, that for me, sex education should be taught to children in primary schools. Age-appropriate sex education, may I add. Why? Because I didn't have that back in the day when I was growing up, when I was in primary school in the 90s. Because I didn't have that education, what was happening to me, I couldn't put into words. I knew it was wrong. I knew it hurt like hell. But even if I wanted to say something, I couldn't, because I couldn't put it into words what was happening to me in the first place. I just couldn't, because there was a lack of education. And so when there's a lack of education, ignorance then fosters within that child. And that ignorance can lead to being stupid about the subject, which, you know, I was until I went to secondary school and then sex education started for me. Or it can lead to intolerance and hate. And so this is why I say children should learn about the LGBTQ plus community, but it has to be age appropriate. And if any schools are showing graphic materials, they need to stop right now. They need to stop that right now. This has to be age appropriate. There is a middle ground to all of this. And this is where Andrew Tate falls down for me on this particular part of his manifesto. He's saying take it out completely, and I'm saying no, there has to be a middle ground. LGBTQ plus community is here to stay. Children need to learn about this community, but it has to be age appropriate. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Here, he then says, restoring British culture and identity. So here he says, look, appoint a minister for British culture. I think that's a great idea. I really, really do. That's a great idea. Then cap non-British residents at 10% of the population to maintain a cultural balance. Oh, that's problematic. I would rather we adopt the Australian immigration point system style. I would rather we do that. Because, yeah, you could say cap the population at 10%, but here in his manifesto, he doesn't really explain how that cap would be adhered to and how that would be maintained. Replace modern art with statues and monuments honouring British heroes. Why replace modern art? That, to me, is art censorship and trying to censor freedom of expression through art. That sends shivers down my spine. Why not have both? Have the modern art and monuments honouring British heroes. We can have both. I mean, right at the beginning of this manifesto, I said he seems to be an all-or-nothing guy here. Very, very cutthroat. And a lot of what we're reading in this manifesto right now is very, very cutthroat. There is a middle ground to a lot of what he's saying here, and he's not adopting that. He says, ensure every street in Britain feels British with English signage, flags and traditional architecture. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that. Any illegal migrant which is identified by a police officer will be arrested and deported from the nation within 7 days. No court case. Okay. How would that happen? Again, he can say it, but how is he going to put in the mechanics to enable that to happen in the first place? The system's already overloaded. It's crushing down on its own weight at this point. Cases are taking years to get to court. And so a system that's fundamentally broken, that is literally falling down over its own weight, how is he going to be able to create and implement a process where this happens within 7 days? How? He's saying it, but then he's not explaining how this would actually happen in reality. Revolutionising education, building the future Britain deserves. And so he says, look, Britain's future lies in innovation, entrepreneurship and technology. To create a nation of leaders and problem solvers, we will overhaul the national curriculum to prioritise entrepreneurship, critical thinking and financial literacy. I agree with that. I think that's a great idea, I do. Arm young Britons with the skills to launch businesses, pioneer technologies and dominate the global stage. I agree with that. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Don't you? Teach our children not just to take jobs, but to create them. Yeah. Totally agree with all those three. I don't see any problem with that. A nation of innovators is a nation of power. It can lead as a global business and technology powerhouse. And this starts in our school. Yeah, totally. But again, he's saying all these things, but at this point, to me, a lot of it is platitudes, right? Okay, great ideas. How are you going to implement them? Where's the funding going to come from for everything that he wants to implement that he's said in this manifesto so far? Is he going to raise taxes? Is he going to diminish taxes, reduce them? What's he going to do? How is he going to implement all these issues, all these manifesto pledges? Then he says investing where it matters. So for decades, Britain has spent £14 billion annually on foreign aid. And so, look, he's saying here's a problem because that £14 billion could be used, really, within our own country that actually needs it more at this point. Nearly 1 in 5 schools in England rated inadequate or requires improvement. Some areas face infrastructure deficits, crumbling roads, underfunded public transport, etc. Meanwhile, foreign aid recipients often misuse these funds with little accountability or benefit to Britain. I have a problem with all of this, what he's saying here. Again, he's not actually confirming the source as to where he's getting this notion that Britain has spent £14 billion annually on foreign aid. I would have loved it if, in this manifesto, he cited his sources behind the figures, the statistics that he's putting in here. If he did that, then it would come across much more trustworthy, right? Saying nearly 1 in 5 schools in England's rated inadequate or requires improvement. Again, where's he getting that from? Cite your sources. It makes you much more trustworthy at that point, instead of people thinking, well, potentially he's making it up, because where's he getting this from, right? Not saying he is making it up, but you see where I'm coming from, right, guys? And where are his examples? Where are his case studies when he says foreign aid recipients often misuse these funds? Well, how often? How are they misusing the funds? We've got a good idea that they are, but Don't just say it, right? Back it up. Back it up. No more foreign aid, no more foreign wars. Foreign aid spending will be cut to zero. How? How will it be cut to zero? British military will no longer be a tool for global conflicts. They'll just have one mission: defend our borders and our sovereignty. Okay? How? Because it's a big thing, right? Standing up and taking on the global military complex. No disrespect, but do you think that Andrew Tate has the power, the means, and the backing to stand up to and be the global military complex? I don't think so. And if he's turning around and he's saying that the British military will no longer be a tool for global conflicts, well, what does that mean for Britain's involvement with NATO, for example? There's, to me, respectfully, a lot of problems with what Andrew Tate is saying here in this whole manifesto. This is very, very scary indeed. Prioritising the NHS, healthcare for Britons first. The NHS is in crisis. Agreed. Waiting times are at all-time high. 7.6 million people waiting for treatment as of 2023. Again, he's not citing his sources. Cite your sources, dude. He says, look, this must all change. British taxpayers should come first. British priority 2 then is then British passport holders, those who carry the privilege and responsibility of citizenship. And then priority 3, everyone else. Emergency care only with costs recovered wherever possible. I have a problem with those priorities. And it's more priority 1 and priority 2. For those that are British taxpayers and British passport holders, to me, they should be equal priority. Because ultimately, they are British. It's as simple as that. Officially British. And so if you're officially British, you should then have access to all the British services that are available. There shouldn't be a divide there as far as I'm concerned. But everyone else, yeah, emergency care only with costs recovered wherever possible. Yeah, totally. He says, look, the NHS spends £500 million annually on health tourism. Cite your sources again, dude. Accountability in government. Over 30% of MPs fail to meet the attendance standards. If you don't show up, you're out. MPs will work for the people, not their paychecks. Weekly referendums powered by blockchain will give every Briton a voice on the issues that matter the most. Okay, so I agree. If you don't show up, you're out. If you don't meet the attendance standards, what you're doing as an MP in the first place. Totally agree with that. Saying MPs will work for the people, not their paychecks, is a platitude. Okay, explain more. What do you really mean by that? And then weekly referendums powered by blockchain. That's scary. Why? Because a lot of people don't even know the existence of a blockchain, let alone how it works, how to access it, how to use it, this, that, and the other, right? I'm one of those people. I'll be very honest with you. And so if the only way to do a weekly referendum is by a blockchain, that is cutting out millions of people in the UK that would not have the technological knowledge to be able to participate in the weekly referendum in the first place. That's not democratic at the end of the day. That's not democratic whatsoever. Zero tolerance on crime. If you're a non-citizen and you commit a crime here, no matter how small, you're gone. Instant deportation, zero appeals. I'm really uneasy with that. But then where do you draw the line? If someone unalives someone does an intimate crime on someone else, right? Attacks children, right? Is an absolute monster to children, right? And they're a non-citizen. If they're a terrorist and they're a non-citizen. Yeah, totally. I agree. Instant deportation, zero appeals, you are out of here. Totally agree with that. However, he's saying no matter how small the crime you own. So, if they steal, let's say, a chocolate bar from a shop, under Andrew Tate's rule, they would be deported. And they would be treated and deported in the same manner, the same way, as someone who's a monster against children, someone who's a terrorist, someone who unalives people. Do you see how that really doesn't match up? Do you see that? I've got a big problem with this. Violent offenders will face the full force of the law. Police officers will meet strict physical standards. I agree with all of that. A transparent and fair tax system. The current tax code is a labyrinth, punishing success and driving talent away. I agree with that. That ends now. A new simplified tax code that can be understood in under 20 minutes. Okay. So what would this simplified tax code be? How would it be understood in under 20 minutes? Why 20 minutes? Where's he getting 20 minutes from? No hidden pitfalls or penalties for getting richer. Success will be rewarded, not penalised. Okay, I agree with that platitude. But how will success be rewarded and not penalised? Go into further detail. This is your manifesto. You've got to lay it out. This seems to be very rushed. Very, very rushed. A brand new tax code for cryptocurrency, working with industry leaders to encourage investment. I agree that, Britain should adopt an additional policy when it comes to cryptocurrency. And we should catch up with that. Totally. But again, how? How? Restoring masculinity and strength. Weak men build weak nations. Britain's decline is rooted in a culture that has forgotten the value of strength, discipline, and resilience. Boxing and wrestling in schools, he says, would help towards building Britain back up. There's other ways to do this. Yeah, boxing and wrestling is one way. But there's other ways as well to build up a better and stronger nation. This is Andrew Tate's machismo now coming out in full force. And no disrespect, but what about women? He says right at the end, Britain needs warriors. Yeah, Britain needs warriors. Women are warriors as well. Licensed armed security, a notion that can't protect its street. A nation that can't protect its streets can't protect its future. We do have a police force that is armed. We do. But the last thing that we need, I believe, is for the whole of the police force to be armed. Because my fear is that it somehow turns into this situation where if the whole of the police force is armed, then the criminals in the streets will be even more armed with guns. And it becomes this kind of quasi-gun war, race to get as many guns as possible from one side or the other kind of thing. We already have an issue with knives, okay? The last thing that we want to do is create a situation, create an environment where if all of the police force have guns, then the criminal enterprise, the criminal community then are like, okay, well, we need to arm ourselves with guns as well now. I'm thinking that's going to be a recipe for disaster. What do you think, guys? Stronger future for Britain. A national Bitcoin reserve. I agree with that. Yes, let's do that. Nuclear power for energy independence. Nuclear power is the key to breaking free from dependency, clean, efficient and reliable. It guarantees a stable energy supply while slashing emissions. I'm not for nuclear power, really, in the grand scheme of things. I'm more for cleaner, renewable energy, like the wind farms. Revamping the voting system. Include digital options to ensure higher voter turnout and engagement. Secure blockchain verified voting to increase transparency and accessibility. Again, he's introducing blockchain, but the problem here is that millions of people in the UK do not know what blockchain is or how to use it or access it. No. Bad. Comprehensive national health strategy emphasising prevention. Yeah. I think that's a good idea. Creating a ministry of future. Long-term planning and innovation. Focus on identifying and prepping for future challenges. I agree with that, a ministry for future, yeah. Foreign policy for Britain. Working closely with our largest partner government, the United States, to foster cooperation in light of their political revival. Any organisation which erodes national sovereignty will enjoy our withdrawal. We want to save Britain and will not have foreign organisations slowing us down. Okay, I've got a big problem with that because there are more benefits, in my opinion, for Britain to be in the United Nations, for example, rather than being out of it. We are literally on the Security Council of the UN. If we withdraw from the UN, we're withdrawing from that as well. We are withdrawing from a major global seat of power there. And we're isolating ourselves even further. That's a bad idea. A bad idea. What we should do is, if the UN is trying to impose its will on the British people, we just turn around and say, it's off. What are they going to do? They're not going to kick us out. They need us, guys. They need us. We just have to have more of a backbone and tell the UN sometimes to piss off. A lot of the other countries do it. Why can't we? He has this whole call to action situation. But yeah, ultimately, going through his manifesto here, right? In my previous video, I discussed Andrew Tate's launch of his ambition to become the next Prime Minister of the UK. And what he was saying on Twitter, a lot of people are thinking of in the UK. He's taking the words straight out of our mouths, right? But going through his manifesto for his bruv political party, yes, there are things I do agree with him on. Totally. But there are other things that are really, really scary that I do not agree with him on. And so ultimately, going through his manifesto, would I vote for him as my next Prime Minister of Britain? Respectfully, no. No, not at all. I think Prime Minister Andrew Tate of the UK, it would be very, very scary and is not the right direction for the UK ultimately. For me, I'm still on board with Nigel Farage and the Reform UK Party. Totally. If there was a vote tomorrow, general election tomorrow, I would vote for Nigel Farage. Hands down, that is it. For me, he is the only viable candidate at this point to become the next Prime Minister of the UK and to save Britain. Now, I would say, as I went through that manifesto, there are some things that I think Nigel Farage should actually take from the bruv party. Because Andrew Tate, he does have a couple of good ideas in there, as I pointed out. But overall, I think he's way too problematic to be Prime Minister of the UK. Way too problematic. And so that is it from me. If you appreciated this video and you want more, and believe me, of course, there's going to be more. You do not want to miss my next video. Then make sure you subscribe to join our Alter Nerd tribe here on Political Nerds. Like, share, Comment down below your opinion, conspiracy theories, whatever's. What did you agree from Andrew Tate's bruv manifesto? What did you disagree with from his manifesto? Ultimately, if there was a general election tomorrow, would you actually vote Andrew Tate to be the next Prime Minister of the UK? Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate all your faces. And until the next time, you guys. Laters.